If you can get hard to the corn but struggle with a real woman, this isn't a random problem. There's a real reason this happens to so many guys, and it has way more to do with your daily habits than it has to do with things like how attractive your partner is or even just your overall masculinity. Now, once you understand what's actually causing this, fixing it becomes way more straightforward. Now, I've gone over 500 plus days on NoFap and even cured my corn induced ED. In today's video, we are going to expose the truth about solving this problem and telling you not theory, but exactly what has worked for me. Now, number one, your diet is working against you, right? So, what you eat directly affects your performance, right? You got to look at yourself, and I always say, as an athlete, right? Performance happens, right? Not from what you do today, but all of the habits and the things that you've done in the past, right? So we think about it nowadays. What do the majority of people eat, right? A lot of sugar, right? A lot of sweets, fast food, things that taste good, right? Things that taste good, they give you a dopamine hit, instant gratification, all of that. And there's so many different options people can go for if you're walking, right? There are billboards for unhealthy foods. If someone is, you know, has the option, has a little bit of money, they can order food, they can do all these things to where it's instant, right? And it's easy to make bad decisions. So what do these things do? Of course, the bad food will affect your hormones, which can directly affect things like blood flow. Again, how amped up, and if we be honest, aroused you'll end up being, right? And then with the ultra processed food, so it's not even if you're buying food, you go to the grocery store, or a lot of times they have all these different ingredients in the foods. If you're not careful, right, it can affect things there too. And what all of these things kind of lead to is inflammation in the body, right? And inflammation in the body will absolutely negatively affect that performance, right? And a trash diet, a diet that is not in nutrient dense foods, is just going to make it harder for your body to respond, right? So you really have to be careful of the inputs that you have, right? What you're actually putting into your body, right? So you gotta look at that, number one. Now, number two, your dopamine baseline is too high. Now, corn and the constant stimulation, right? What does it do? And it can be a lot of things. It can be movies, right? TV shows. It can be, there's so many things that they call a super stimuli. Now, super stimuli is basically where you're getting a higher level of dopamine than you would normally get from, being outside, being in nature, socializing with people, all of those things. And when that gap starts to grow, you just feel less happy with what you're doing in your day-to-day life, right? Things just don't feel as exciting to you, right? Even things like Real Woman, right? A lot of times they're less stimulating, and your brain kind of gets stuck on that high dopamine level, right? So what you have to do is you have to figure out ways to lower that, right? And of course, number one would just be, taking a break from the corn, right? So you bring that dopamine level down. It will help you really just be able to delay gratification, which honestly is the key to a lot of different having success in a lot of different areas, right? If you can suffer and go through painful trials in the short term, right, but know that it's going to pay off in the long run, I guarantee you'll be a lot happier, with yourself and more confident in yourself because you put in that work as a man, right? So lowering that baseline dopamine, super important. Now, number three, dehydration. Let's just talk about it, right? Water. Most of you are probably not even drinking any water. I got mine right here, got my water right here, but a lot of you are not getting in enough water. Right, what does water do? Water can hydrate the body. Now, of course, people will talk about have your minerals, have your electrolytes, but just hydration is so important and is easily overlooked, right? It's one of those small things that people don't track, right? And if you're dehydrated all the time, what is, blood flow and even having performance, being able to get it up, right? What is that? It's, the blood is going to a certain place. Now, if you don't have enough hydration in your body, man, you're not going to have the performance you're looking for, right? It's very correlated. So you got to make sure, constantly, and try to, drink out of glass, ideally, right? You don't want all the microplastics and all those things in your body that you're drinking. So try to drink out of the glass, but you want to get enough water in, right? And low intake of water can reduce the circulation, the blood flow, And obviously, that in turn is going to make your physical response much worse, right? And then, of course, just in general, right, water can give you a little bit more energy sometimes. And again, when you're looking for consistency in your performance and actually having confidence in your performance, then you have to have certain routines and certain habits that stay consistent over time, right? So you have variables that are constant, right? You have variables, things that will stay the same, and then you can have other variables, things that will change. But you have to have some things that stay consistently, in place so you can understand what to actually change to get that outcome, right? But hydration is way more important than the majority of what people realize. Now, if you're struggling with corn-induced ED, right, you've tried a lot of different things, nothing seems to work. And of course, this is where you can get aroused and get it up to the corn, to the adult content, that then struggle to get or keep it up with a real woman in real life, right? And you want some help. You want a step-by-step instruction on how to fix this problem. You don't want to spend years trial and error, and you want a blueprint to just give you exactly what you need, man. Click the link in the description below, book a free call, and let's see exactly how I can help you. Now, number 4, your beliefs are shaping your outcomes. And another one that's so overlooked, right? Because what you think is what you think about, right? And your thoughts directly affect your actions, right? Your actions lead to pretty much what happens in your life. And therefore, what you think really can affect the outcomes of your life, right? So if someone has just a negative performance, right? You know, things are going on, maybe you're getting intimate and boom, you can't get it up, right? What's going to happen? This is going to be stuck in your mind, right? So the next time, even before you're talking to someone, right? You want to bring things to the next level, you're already going to be thinking about this in your mind. And it makes this negative feedback loop over and over again. And it makes you doubt yourself, right? You don't have confidence and you're really wondering, man, am I going to be able to perform, right? with my next game, quote unquote, right? And it makes people nervous, right? And that's completely normal because it's a negative feedback loop, right? And what happens is this also just, puts your failures and puts you in stress mode, right? So it associates this action, right? This moment with stress. And of course, you being stressed is going to have a negative, basically impact on your performance, right? And a lot of times people will tell themselves it's permanent, right? They'll never get out of this. And they even beat themselves up in almost their worst enemy, which is the worst thing you can do, right? And I guarantee you're not going to perform well if you have that negativity in your mind, right? So the story starts to repeat itself and becomes a pattern that you live day to day. So you really got to attack the beliefs and just what you believe is possible for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you can change your beliefs, you can do whatever you want in life. And at least you can attempt, right? A lot of people will beat themselves up and are even their own worst enemy. Now, number 5, chronic stress. So this ties into the last point, right? So when you have that negative feedback loop, you're going to be more stressed, right? And let's just talk about it in general, right? People are walking around with so much stress day to day, right? Think about the average probably morning routine. Someone wakes up, what do? Their phone is probably their alarm. They check their phone, open up their phone, start scrolling through Instagram, maybe emails, all these things. Man, and your brain doesn't even have a chance to just set itself up, right? You think back in the day our ancestors were, going on social media first thing in the morning? Absolutely not. What were they doing? They were going outside, getting some sunlight, right? Maybe eating something, or maybe they got to go hunt to eat something, right? But you see how our daily habits have changed so much. And the sun is so important too, because they say the sun also, boosts the testosterone and does all of these things that we need, just to be healthy human beings, right? So those daily habits really put people in a fight or flight state, right? You're getting all this blue light all the time. I'm sure that's not going to be helpful, and make your nervous system feel better. No, you're going to feel stressed. And it's going to be over time, slowly but surely, right? And then you have the negative thoughts, right? And then these negative thoughts impact how you see yourself as well. So when you see yourself as not a confident person, maybe someone who, has trouble with, women, right? It's all going to snowball into a negative cycle, right? You're going to be stressed and you're just going to have these beliefs that you are just not that type of person, right? And it all starts up here, right? So you really have to, practice things like meditation, right? Practice just separating from your thoughts, right? De-stressing, whatever you have to do, right? And obviously, I don't mean anything, right? Maybe watching YouTube is probably a little bit better, reading a book, getting outside, playing sports, exercising, all of these things, right, are ways that you can de-stress and kind of lower the chronic inflammation, right, that a lot of people do have, because stress is one of those things that it's invisible, right? But it's important to make sure that you have a way to cope with it. And all stress isn't bad, right? Stress to perform and be a better you is not necessarily bad, but anything has to be within reason, and you don't want it to get, and go too far. Now, number 6, you're not retraining arousal properly. So this is another small one that a lot of people overlook, right? Because in order to retrain your brain, right, it's not only abstaining from the corn, right? There's other pieces to it, right? So sure, you can abstain, and yes, your brain will eventually rewire, but what you need to do with that time, that extra time that now you have back, is to get outside, right? And be just around other people, right? Especially people you find attractive, right? Because it helps to bring you back to reality, is what I say, right? And it speeds things up so much faster than if you're just inside doing your thing. And although you're retaining, right, you're on your streaks for no fap and all of that, but you're not really changing as much as you need to be, right? So you got to understand you have energy, right? And it's your choice what you do with that energy, right? And what you should be doing is putting it into things that can make make your life better, whether that's being in the gym, right? Sports, it could be reading, right? It could be writing, it could be, creating content, whatever it is for you. But those things are important to your development and will really make the difference for you in terms of, retraining your mind to go back to that state to where, your dopamine is regular. And then, man, before you know it, you'll have no problems performing at all. Now, if you learned something new from this video, please give me a like. And if you want that step-by-step instructions, teach you exactly how to do this, step-by-step cure the corn-induced ED, the PIED. You don't want to waste years stuck in the same spot, trial and error, man. Click the link in the description, book a call. Peace.